Hey Ramblers, before we kick off today's episode, I just want you to know that we're finally ready to launch OffSource and it's going to be in October. The team is working tirelessly and endlessly to bring you an amazing product and service. So if you know anyone that needs a virtual assistant or just like to make some extra money for our referral program, tell them to head to offsource.tech or text info to 516-408-2427. Make sure you're following us across all social media at OffSourceHQ. Now let's get ready to ramble. Before we begin, a moment from our sponsor. Hey Ramblers, welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Ramblings. It's the midweek, Hump Week Wednesday today, and we have Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting, president, and he is here to talk to us today about what Northshire does. We've networked a couple of times over throughout this coronavirus, and he's been a very valuable person. I think what he talks about and some of the things that he's working on is going to be pretty big and awesome. So, Brian, introduce yourself.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting. As you said, we've met through some networking groups. One of your previous guests, Trip, we met through Trip. So continuing that cycle, I was able to listen to that podcast tonight. So it was good to listen to that. So I'm local. I'm in Connecticut, and as you said, it's an independent investment advisory firm. So our focus is on working with individuals and small business, working on small business retirement plans, 401ks, for example, and bringing financial education and financial literacy to small businesses. And when I say small, I mean, 2-3 employees. So trying to bring that sort of quote down market, even though I don't like that term, but sort of bring that into really small businesses because it's an area that's overlooked.
Okay, that's actually something that we love. We actually focus on small businesses, 2 to 3 employees as well. So I do like that. Talk to us about what Northshire Consulting does, is how they came to be. Give us some backstory.
Yeah, sure. So backstory is I've been in the investment world for about 20 years. So right out of school and went into the industry in the year 2000. So that makes the math easy, right? I can always tell how long I've been in the business. So I started in, through the financial planning industry, and throughout the course of my time, I realized this looking back on it, I've actually gone from bigger organizations and every step gotten a little bit smaller. So I went out on my own as a true independent about 2 years ago, and used all that knowledge that I had to really be truly independent. And I know that word is kind of thrown around a lot in our industry, but it really means I'm not affiliated to any larger investment organizations as far as any ownership or any sort of relationship there, no national broker dealer or anything like that. So where it relates back to you as far as this podcast goes, I think a little bit is when you talk about small businesses and shopping local and all that sort of movement that's happening, you don't really think of an investment advice as maybe being one of those things that you shop local, right? You might think of the bakery or the flower shop or something like that. But our industry is changing quite a bit through technology that's available and some efficiencies, just like you and I are doing right now, Angelo. So you're able to build a business and be truly independent, whereas 10, maybe even 5 years ago, you wouldn't be able to do this because you'd have to make a huge outlay as far as compliance goes or, servers and that type of stuff. But now, because of some technology and some shared resources, you can be truly independent. So when I'm speaking to clients, I can say, okay, how much of your investment advisory fee stays in your community? So you think about that when you're shopping local. And I can say that 100% of the investment advisory fees stay in your community. It's not going to some, chain organization out of St. Louis or Minneapolis or Boston or whatever. It's truly part of that. So that's what I wanted to bring to the table. The other thing about being truly independent is you're without extra, middle people involved, you're actually able to deliver, in my opinion, a higher quality service at a lower cost because I'm not having to pay other entities for, you watch a football game on a Sunday afternoon, how many different financial services are going to, run ads through those football games. So who's paying for those ads? The clients are paying for those ads, right? They're paying to get that revenue is going out there to help produce those ads. So so by being local and by being independent, I'm able to, and I'm, in my opinion, deliver a higher quality service at a lower cost because there's just simply not as many middlemen involved. So in doing that, I can serve a different type of client, somebody who might be overlooked by the mega financial firms. So there's a few different ways I can do that, but we'll get into that, I'm sure, in the podcast.
We certainly will. That sounds very interesting. So something that we always ask everyone that comes up here, because this is something that's geared towards entrepreneurs, business owners, and everything, we recognize that people don't necessarily get into this space always on purpose. Now, you said you've been 20 years in investing, and investing is never a pretty thing in high school or in college when you're talking to people at parties and everything. So has this been something you've always wanted to do, or is it something that kind of fell in your lap?
Yeah, it's interesting. I always sort of had a passing interest, I guess, sort of in high school. The idea of like stock is essentially you're owning a piece of the company, right? Even though you own, let's say, one share of Apple, you own a part of that company. So that idea was always kind of bouncing around in my head. So that interested me when I was young, but I didn't really know how to make that a career or what that really entailed. So I took some classes in college, started to get into it a little bit. But again, you're learning more of sort of the back end, not really what it means to do that as a career. So I started in it as a career figuring, well, if it doesn't work out for me, at least I'll have a knowledge for myself, some basic, financial literacy, so that if I go do something totally different career-wise, maybe I'll at least have that base. And I realized that it really truly was a way to help people. There's different types of people in this industry. There's people who are in this industry to sell products, and they get paid some kind of commission, and it's their job to sell a specific, something that their bank tells them to sell or something along those lines. But then there's folks more like me who work in what's called in a fiduciary capacity, which means they work in your best interest. So you're going to pay them a fee to help you out, but they don't get paid based on what product they put you in, so to speak. So somebody like me might lay 2 or 3 options for you on the table, but where you invest as the individual doesn't affect that person's compensation at all. So that builds trust with the client, because if you're giving client option A and option B, and they know you get paid more on option B, how can they really trust you to give them objective advice? Because they think you're going to push them into the option that pays you more as a quote professional. But if you get paid the same across the board, then it increases that level of trust. So that's the way I work now, is 100% in the fiduciary capacity. And I think that once you explain that to clients and they get that, they sort of don't understand the other side that would work the other way, but that's out there, and it's important that people, whoever they work with, understand if that person on the other side of the table is trying to sell them something or is working in their best interest. So I think all that stuff kind of came together for me, sort of, I guess, mid-career, you'd say. So I said, all right, I'm at the position now where I can really build something. I can build it the way I want to build it, and I can work in that fiduciary capacity 100% of the time. And it all sort of came together at once.
That sounds wonderful, especially within that capacity of being able to help someone and really provide an objective opinion, because I can let you know that as a small business owner, we definitely do lean towards people that are in that situation rather than someone who would be paid more based on the package that we purchase, which
Right.
is so I would actually like you to expand more on that. What, as someone in balancing what we have to do and what we love with actually having to make money, pay bills,
Yeah.
what
Right.
led you down the fiduciary path of really focusing on helping someone versus taking the money for yourself?
Yeah. So I think that's a challenge, because it's a much harder path. If you're somebody who gets paid to sell products, you can just go from one client to another and sell that product, and usually there's some upfront commission or something like that, and you get that and you move to the next client. Whereas this is more of a long-term, ongoing relationship. So I have to sort of prove my worth every quarter and tell you what I'm doing to earn that money over the longer term. But that's kind of in line with just my personality anyway. I'd rather continue to prove my worth rather than, charge you a big upfront fee or something like that. So I think that's important. And one of the other, major parts of what I do is on the 401k side. So essentially what the 401k, in my opinion, is designed to be is a way to bring financial wellness into the workplace. So let's say, for example, I go into a small business with 20 employees, and I give my, talk, my education about what's a 401k. Here's how it works. Here's how you should invest. So I'll do that in a group setting, and then usually what I'll tell them is I'll say, hey, let's do a meeting in the morning, a group meeting, and I'll just black out the rest of the day, and I'll meet with your employees as long as you want me to, as long as they want to keep continuing to meet with me. So I'll do one-on-one meetings, maybe 15, 20 minutes a piece, and just stay as long as I need to meet with me. If everybody wants to meet with me, great. If there's nobody who wants to be one-on-one, then we'll just move on. But I think in that capacity, you end up speaking with people, and even though you're, quote, the 401k guy, they're going to ask you about college savings plans or paying down debt or a mortgage, but you become that financial resource. So in a place where you're dealing with, let's say, lower income workers or maybe more blue collar workers, they may not have that money to go hire somebody on the outside. And they may not even know what to look for if they were to go hire somebody on the outside. They might not have $2,500 to go sit down with a financial planner or something, but if the employer can bring that as an added benefit to the table for that small business and use the 401k to be part of that, then I think really that's the better solution, So maybe a group of attorneys or a group of doctors or accountants or whatever, they may not need that level of service, but for the vast majority of small businesses or nonprofits to deliver financial wellness through the retirement plan at the workplace, I think is a great opportunity for the employers really to show their appreciation for their workers. It's a great value for the employees because now suddenly they're getting a benefit at work that they couldn't get on the outside. And for me, I get to deal with these people in a group setting and, in a one-on-one setting thereafter. Whereas if they were individual clients, it might cost me a lot more time or it might cost them a lot more, as far as paycheck or writing me a check for the services. So basically delivering those services in bulk. So I love the 401k because it lets me sit in front of people who would never come to me on their own. That 22-year-old who's putting away $20 a week is never going to call me up and become an individual client. It just wouldn't make sense for us. But for me to sit in front of that employee and say, wow, you're 22. If you put money away at this rate for the next 50 years, look how many, millions of dollars you'll have, and those numbers work. They're real numbers. But it is kind of fun to sit in front of those younger people and get them involved in it. So that's why I like the 401k, and that's why I like the workplace retirement aspect of it.
We really like that. I've noticed that there's a pretty good young demographic that listens to the podcast. And so as someone who's setting himself up for protection for the future and everything with my financial advisor and such, I have something we call a three-legged stool, which is disability, life insurance, and a Roth. Explain for the young people out there the added protection or the added benefit of starting early, or starting that protection earlier than when most people started.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the most powerful force in the universe, they say, is the ability to compound money. And when you're younger, you can be more aggressive than when you're older. So when I'm sitting in front of a young person, I say, you're going to be very aggressive, meaning, not put all your eggs in one basket, not invested in one biotech stock. But as far as stock market allocation goes, you're going to be more aggressive because you've got, 40 years until you retire. So you've got time for the market to bounce back, and you've got, and you probably don't have a ton of money, right? So if you've got $500 in your account and the market goes down 50%, that's not going to affect your lifestyle really. So whereas on the other side, if you're 70 years old, you're going to be a little bit more defensive. You're going to be a little bit more, hopefully have a higher balance. So that is a huge advantage to start when you're younger because you can get that ability to compound. And also, later, and I'll say, a little bit later on than that, you might be, having kids, buying houses, doing all those sort of adulting type things that maybe you're not doing at 22, but you might be doing at 27, 32, 37, something like that. So you may actually be pausing your retirement savings at some point, or may have to cut back a little bit, which is perfectly fine. But if you're able to, let's say, come out of college and really stuff your retirement accounts from 22 to 26, and then maybe pause them as you go through some other life stuff, and then revisit it again in your early 30s, that money that you were able to sock away in your early 20s is going to have that ability to grow, so that when you do get back in the mix, you've got a good foundation there. So I always tell somebody, if they're starting their new job, at least do something, whether it's $5 a paycheck, $10 a paycheck, just at least do something. Get a feel for how the account works, get a feel for how the paycheck, gets reduced by that amount, log in, follow it a little bit, statement to statement. Just use it as more of an education piece. So always at least do something. And then the other spectrum of that is I always get some eager 22-year-old who says, I want to max out my 401k. I'm living at home and I don't have any other expenses. Let me just max out my 401k. And sometimes you have to tell those people to sort of calm down and pull back a little bit, because your 401k is really designed to be a retirement account. And they're going to have, like we said, other life events along the way, the house, the kids, the cars. So it's great to put away money for retirement, but you need that other savings too, that short-term savings. So you want to be in a position where you can access money as you need it, and not just completely focus on that retirement goal when you're 22 years old and leave out all the stuff that's going to happen before then. So it is a little bit of a mix. Sometimes it's pulling people into the 401k plan, and sometimes it's sort of pushing people and telling them to ease back a little bit. But there is a balance, and it's a little bit different for everybody. That's why I like to meet with everybody one-on-one if I can.
That's beautiful. We like that. So really focusing on narrowing to a specific situation,
Sure.
So for the people that are now like, okay, I would like to go, they've heard this and like, oh, I want to go make something actionable. What would be your one most important piece of advice for someone listening, that if they were like, I want to go take action on changing my finances, what would be your very first piece of actionable advice?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. First thing I would always do is to see what's available through your workplace. A lot of companies have some pretty good benefits. Unfortunately, some have had to cut back a little bit through this year and through COVID and stuff, but make sure you're taking advantage of the benefits that are available through work, whether there's all sorts of interesting benefits that are out there. So make sure you're at least taking advantage of those. Even if it's a 401k plan that doesn't have a match, at least get involved in that in some aspect. If they do have a match, you want to at least contribute up to that match, because let's say for easy math, you make $100 in a week and you're putting away 3% and the company's putting away 3%. Well, you put away $3, the company's going to add in $3. Now you've got $6 in your account. You immediately got 100% return on that $3 that you put in. So that's free money. So you want to at least make sure you're contributing up to the match, but look to the employer first. And if you're in a smaller business or even a mid-sized business, if there's a benefit or something that you'd like, don't be afraid to ask for it. Or if there isn't a 401k or isn't something that you think is available, maybe not your first day on the job, but you might want to approach the business owner or somebody in HR and say, hey, why don't we have a 401k, or why don't we have this type of benefit? So a lot of times small businesses think that 401ks or some other retirement plan is too time consuming or too expensive, and maybe a few years ago that was the case, but there's so much that's happened even in just the last year and a half that's made it a lot more affordable and a lot easier to start up. So don't be afraid to ask your HR person or business owner. So I'd say that's the first step, of course. See what's available through workplace, and then look at something on the outside. So if you're somebody who likes to do things yourself, don't be afraid to experiment with small amounts of money and take small risks with that, or small try things out. Now's your time to experiment if you're 22 years old. So try some things, do things on your own if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable, reach out to some sort of professional like myself and just have that conversation. And some of this business is, it's numbers, but it's a lot personality. Make sure you're comfortable with somebody. Make sure you're hopefully they're working with you in a fiduciary capacity and they're not just trying to bombard you with products. See how they work, how they get paid. Is it an hourly? Is it a flat fee? Is it something that's more of a subscription model, which is getting a little bit more popular? And then you'll see how you're comfortable. You know, if you're somebody who's got that Netflix and that Hulu bill every week or every month, and you're just used to paying things on a subscription basis, well, maybe you want to pay for your advice that way as well. Maybe there's somebody like myself that you can sit down and do a 15-minute Zoom with every month and handle your finances that way. So I guess the first two steps would be see what's available through Workplace and take advantage of that. And then on the outside, seek help and don't rush into anything, and be sure to ask the right questions of whoever you're working with.
Okay, here, make sure you guys take that down. Take it down. Go check out where you work at first. You may not have to go to an outside place. So you've been doing this for some time now. During Corona, a lot of businesses have fallen off. We've even heard about bigger businesses being almost tone deaf, if you will. For those that can't say, I did air quotes, tone deaf when it comes to the current state of marketing. You know, when is it time to talk about caring? When is it time to push that, we have a service? How have you built your book of business, and what has been your defense strategy during this coronavirus?
Well, it's interesting. It has been a challenge. So one of the things that's kind of interesting that we put together is we put together these things. I don't want to get too complicated here, but it's called a multiple employer plan, which lets business owners adopt into a plan with other employers. So we did one here through the Southington Chamber of Commerce. It was actually the third chamber in the country to put one out. So, and we're the first smaller chamber. The first two were a statewide chamber, and the other one was Las Vegas chamber. So that's something we were really proud of, and we put that together as the Southington Chamber. And we put that through at the end of February. We did a press conference, and then like a week and a half later, all the businesses closed. So that was frustrating because we had a lot of good momentum, and it was a really exciting program. And then businesses immediately got defensive and we're not going to. So that's a program where businesses could start retirement plans, use it going through the chamber, or they could take their existing retirement plans and convert into the chamber plan for some cost savings and some efficiencies. So businesses weren't starting new plans and they weren't interested in converting. So that's been a bit of a challenge. So I'm not gonna lie to you about that, but the 401k business generally moves pretty slow anyway. Just compliance-wise, there's certain notices that have to get out to employees. You don't just walk into a business and move their 401k. So it's kind of a slow-moving business anyway. So that part I was used to, but prospecting, to be honest with you, has been a challenge because you don't know. A lot like your business too. You don't know who's on the other end of the phone, what they're going through. Is their grandmother sick? Is their child sick? Are they sick? Or, where are they? Even if you're doing things nationally, like what are the regulations in that community and that kind of stuff. So, so that has been a challenge. One of the things that I started when I started my business was I wanted to have this subscription model that you and I have talked about for mainly for young people and maybe sort of that 22 to 30 range, where doing one big financial plan doesn't make a whole lot of sense to spend all this time to come up with this plan when you're 22 years old, because 3 months later it's going to be totally useless because your life's going to change so many different ways. So was to do that subscription model where, for a small fee for, 25, 30 bucks a month, a young person can, sit on the other side of the screen and do these virtual meetings like this and work through some financial planning software and really approach it from an education basis. So, so if they have a question, hey, Brian, what's a stock? What's a mutual fund? What's a bond? Create that comfort level where they can just ask it, where they're not embarrassed to, maybe they don't, might not be comfortable in a group setting at work or something like that, to just bounce an idea off me, or just, even if it's a vocabulary term.
Explain that more. I like that. So for those of you out there that didn't necessarily catch that, Brian is actually actively working on building something on the side, which is for people like us and us, I mean, young people, that is for financial knowledge. It's like a software that really is, I guess Brian can tell you better about it. So tell us more.
Yeah, so there's a software component to it too. I wouldn't necessarily that's to say a main driver of it, but I do use some software on the back end that lets the client connect some outside accounts. So let's say they have a 401k at work, or maybe they have checking account and they want have some budgeting questions. We can walk through that, but they can link these outside accounts, and then I can view them right alongside of them. So I can say, well, why don't you make this change in your 401k, or why don't you, do this or do that? And they can link, mortgages, credit cards, all that sort of stuff. So it's really a way to do some, not necessarily super long-term financial planning, but just sort of that month-to-month, weekly thing. So, we're all in an environment of short attention spans and things like that. So what I found is that 15 to 20-minute window works great, so you can do it during a lunch, you can do it, in an evening or something like that. It's like, all right, I'm going to hop on with Brian at 7 o'clock and we're just going to bang out a couple things till 7:15 and look at my budget. And I want to ask him, what's a mutual fund? What's a stock? I heard something, Jim Cramer was yelling about something on CNBC. What the heck is he talking about? So create that type of relationship. That's a little bit of planning, a little bit of education, a little bit of investment advice, kind of all rolled into one package. Because for the younger people, that's just how they work. They're used to the subscription model. They're used to doing things virtually, and they like things in small bites. So I think that's a huge area of the market that's overlooked, and those people don't necessarily get the attention from the bigger banks or the bigger brokerages, just because it's just not economically feasible to match up. There's certain services out there where it's more of kind of a robo-advisor type thing, where it's just kind of like an automated platform, but which they think the young people like, but I think they like a little bit of mixture of both. They like some technology, but then they also like the consistency of knowing there's a human on the other end. And they actually like knowing that the human might even be in their same state, believe it or not. There is, I feel, that sort of connection. Even though it's virtual, I think there's an advantage to having somebody that's, in Connecticut or in New England or something like that. So that's at least what I've found. I mean, you could probably tell me if I'm way off base, but
no, people do love people in their states, because we don't, as us being confined to our rooms and houses now at this point, the world is our playground, So when we are able to meet someone that's across the world, that's cool. But when we're able to meet someone that's, across the city, and that's even better, because now we have the ability to bring this relationship to the ultimate level, which is in person.
Right, and then you're more likely to have mutual connections. You're more likely to, you can talk about the weather or things like that. But you know the same people. You might shop at the same places or go to the same restaurants. And then when you do have a chance to meet up, you get to see how tall actually everybody is, because you can never tell anymore, right? We're all the same height in here. But yeah, so that's the subscription model that I started actually before even all the COVID stuff. But it's something I haven't really actively marketed, but it's something that really came out of a need, actually. A referral of mine, somebody that I used to work with, called me and said, "Hey, I got this kid of a young kid of a friend of mine who's just got out of school. They're really interested in investing and they want to work with somebody, but they don't have a lot of money, and they what's out there for them?" And I'm like, well, there really isn't anything. So I built this program around that individual, and it's worked out fine. It's fun. I like doing it. And I have capacity to handle more clients. But it's just kind of a fun little thing that fits in with everything else that I'm doing, but it's a little bit different than what's out there.
We love that. And so that's about your time. I know you probably have things, and it's late for us here in Connecticut. It's 9:07. So I will get ready and we'll be signing off. So is there anything that you want to promote? Is there a beta date that's going to be coming out for this?
No, I mean, everything I do is sort of, I'm not into they don't really have any big launches like you got going on. You got all the hype stuff coming, but no, I mean, everything for me, it's just, I focus on things from a compliance standpoint and make sure everything is nice and clean. So I'm always kind of rolling and evolving as new compliance, new technology comes out. But I mean, the subscription service is live and well, the 401k stuff, even the multiple employer plan. So the idea of small businesses not even having to start their own plan, they can join a Chambers plan or something like that. That's going to be the wave of the future in 401k plans, because there's no reason for most small businesses to have to pay all the fees and expenses of their own 401k plan when they can, join an association plan. So I think those two things are probably the things that are the differentiators for me and what I'm most excited about.
That actually sounds good. As the multi-employee, I really can't say it right now.
It's getting late.
So as that continues to grow, I'm actually joining the New Haven Chamber, and as someone who would like to bring 401ks, and there's like 900 members in the Chamber of New Haven, I think that might be something that might be able to work going towards later on in the year.
Yeah, I think so. Yep. It's going to be, I mean, so speaking, I know we're getting up against the time here, but you figure Connecticut's got, 1.5 million workers, 600,000 of them don't have access to any sort of workplace retirement account, which is, in my opinion, it's just crazy that 40% of the state can't put money away for retirement out of their paycheck. So, there'll be a point when the state will come out with a program and sort of force people into something. But, at this point, there's no reason for small businesses, whether you have 2 employees or 200, not to at least offer something, because the fee structure and the technology and the ease of starting a plan are just made a lot of changes the last couple of years. So there's no reason to have that many without access.
Well, we certainly appreciate that kind of knowledge and information, and you have really given such great value today. So we thank you for dropping by.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right, so hopefully that we'll be able to have you come back on, maybe as the software develops and becomes much more of a prominent kind of thing. We look forward to speaking with you again.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
No problem. Before you go, Ramblers, if you enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure you're following me across all platforms at Assistance HQ. Catch up on exclusive content and keep track of everything going on at OffSource. See you in October.